Thank you so much, Tom. We're really excited about today and hoping to hear a lot from you. So please be interactive. We'll monitor the chat as best we can, and we'll have some opportunities where we ask you to share your opinions, share what you're thinking and working on, and so on. I'm going to start by sharing my screen. And you will see a QR code and also a code to join if you're joining on a web browser. We're going to use Mentimeter so that we can get a couple temperature readings on how you're feeling about faculty PD and specifically faculty PD professional development related to AI. So lots and lots to think about and get excited about. Tom, we're super grateful for the opportunity, and everybody who's here, thank you so much for being here, especially Heather, because you're just the best person to work with, Heather. So I'm going to get us started, and I'll give you another moment here to log on. I see lots of thumbs up, which means you're getting in. So professional development is always challenging in certain ways, and then you add something like AI that's so new, so uncertain, and in some ways it exacerbates the challenges that we already know, and in other ways it presents totally new ones. So we're going to talk about a program that we tried out over the summer, and you are welcome. There'll be a resource that we shared later to just hook, line, and sinker, borrow it. Or what I'm hoping even more is that it will inspire you to come up with ideas that are unique to your faculty and your institution, and then someday share those with us. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and switch over to the next slide. The program that we piloted over the summer was called Tinker Time, and we'll see that in addition to just being a really fun and nice name, there was a really specific reason that we wanted to set the idea of tinkering and see what people could do relative to AI. Before we get started, I would just love to see in the chat and we got some questions beforehand, so I know some of these already, but what are some of the challenges that you have relative to faculty professional development? Let's throw a couple of those in there if you don't mind. Busy, resistant, fixed mindset, time, absolutely. Getting them to show up. I think that kind of encapsulates our frustrations all over. I've just got a big yes from Heather Brown. Good to see you here, Heather. Yeah, right. So there's really a lot that is a challenge here. And what we started to notice too, in addition to all of that, is that when we talk about AI, and this isn't just in professional development, this is all around, we're not all always having the same conversation. So I'm going to start by talking about what we came up with, and all of this will be in the resource that we share with you at the end. What a framework that we came up with we just called it roles in the AI conversation. And you see there are 5 circles here for 5 roles. And essentially what we decided was, instead of talking around each other, let's try to look and see what different things people are, where they're coming from. So innovators might be coming from the idea that we had a ship metaphor that we used, that they're navigating by the stars. They have this futuristic point of view, and they see a really exciting direction. The guardians might be more experienced, and they feel like there's something that could be lost if we don't do this carefully. Problem solvers, I love problem solvers. Sometimes I'm a problem solver. I love when I am. Problem solvers are like, what can we do to support student success? Let me get in there and make that happen. Analysts, super important role as well, right? What are things that we're not seeing? How does this play out? What kind of data do we have? And then there are passengers. There are people who just need to get to the destination safely. They need to know enough about where we're going to get there. And what you might be thinking as you see these is that your faculty members who you're hoping to inspire and train relative to AI could be any one of these roles. But before we talk about that, I'm just curious what role you are. And it might be different from day to day, but right now, just kind of give a sense. If you had to pick one, problem solvers right there at the beginning, where do you think you are in this role conversation? All right, interesting. All right, I'll give it just another moment.
While you're giving it that moment, Anna, you know how much I like to jump. This is why Anna brings me along. She does all the hard work, and then I just, jump on in. And I do have to give Anna credit. These, she said we, but these roles are all her, and they're brilliant, and we've been using them institutionally for lots of good stuff. But Lauren said in the chat, the role changes based on the faculty member. And I think this is a lot like those, personality assessments we like to do, the Myers-Briggs and all those things. They also change based on the day and based on the situation. Someone might be an innovator in one situation and a passenger in another. And so it's really important to identify. Somebody earlier in the chat had mentioned one of the challenges is fixed mindset. And I spent a ton of time working with growth mindset to try to, avoid the fixed mindset, to look into and tap into faculty that it's not one flat character. Every person is a very dynamic character. And although there may be some fixed ideas in this area, there could be some growth ideas in that area. So to see how these kind of fluctuate and change is really interesting.
Love that. Thank you for that important point. And because we're talking about mindset, right? Like it really is interesting that if I can look at somebody who's in a different role than I ever play, and then I'm not having necessarily a fixed mindset about the things they're saying, which I have caught myself for sure doing. All right, so we're going to change this up a little bit. In your opinion, no names get attached to these. Where is PD most needed when it comes to AI specifically? If you were to say, okay, who really could benefit from some learning and some opportunity for growth and so on here, you can go ahead and put these in the order that you think they should go in. Just as I'm about to say something, they always change. Okay, these are interesting. They're really not, there's not a huge difference, right? I see passengers are kind of way ahead, innovators, we don't think as much, but the other three just keep switching, which is pretty interesting. All right, I love to do this. I'm gonna switch it up just a little bit more with the next slide, which is, who is most likely to attend a PD session?
Specifically focused on AI.
Correct. Although I think this might actually be more universal than that as well. Right. So this is, I think for me, I went through this myself, and this isn't super different than what I predicted we were going to say. And here's what I started to think. If we think guardians and passengers really could benefit the most from PD, and they're probably the least likely to be attending, why? What can we do? How can we embrace and change what we're doing so that we have more robust participation from people who we think might really benefit from that? So just knowing those roles and having an open mind, I think, is a piece of that. I'm going to let Heather take this over now and talk a little bit about Tinker Time. She always says the ideas are mine, but this was so solidly hers and it was so great. So I want her to tell you about Tinker Time and how it fits into what we're talking about right now.
Well, the Heathers have these great minds. So it actually goes right into what Heather Brown just posted in the chat about internal motivation and fear keeping people from moving forward. So I love challenge and I love change. Anybody who knows me knows I get really bored really easily. So like every 6 months, I have to, pick up a brand new hobby that I'm terrible at, and then I get mediocre at it, and then I get bored, and then I switch to another hobby. According to a wonderful speaker on TED, I'm a multi-potentialite. So when AI came on the scene, I was like, oh, this is so cool. And I got really excited. And that was not what was happening across campus. There was a lot of, as Heather says here, a lot of fear, and that was keeping people from moving forward. But that is a very natural reaction to change and challenge for most people. So where Tinker Time was born was a place of gently moving the needle. So this comes from one of my mentors, Myra Walters, who I don't think I've seen her here yet, but she comes to a lot of our things. And she says, when it comes to faculty development, there's 3 principles. The first one is get them there. The second one is teach them something. And the third one is build community. And so I keep that on my desk all the time. So I'm looking at it constantly. So I'm like, how can I get people to something about AI without scaring them away from it? And that's where tinkering came from, because I like to tinker with things. I don't have to be great at them, but I like to explore them. So I was like, maybe some other folks would like to tinker with us. So I set some specific parameters, and the Office of FSW Online combined with FSW Learning Technologies, we kind of work together. So there's a little administration, and there was most of us are adjuncts, so we're also faculty, and then some instructional designers. And the parameters were this had to be inclusive, it had to be accessible, and it had to kind of gently ease folks into tinkering with generative AI. So for the inclusive, accessible part, we wanted to also model really, really good online teaching. So everything was high flex. So that meant that there was a high flex Zoom sessions. Faculty could either come to campus in person, or they could log in on Zoom, or they could finish the module asynchronously on their own. So we took out any kind of time, place barriers. This was like, do it when it works for you, do it in the method or the modality of learning that also works for you. And then each module had to have a community building component. It had to have an AI component. And so we really kind of wove these things in. And instead of telling faculty, hey, teach with AI, because that's kind of a bad plan and it's definitely not going to work for everybody, and it shouldn't, because we're all different in academic freedom. We said, come to this, tinker with this tool yourself, and see what you think about it. And if it's going to make you more effective in, developing assignments, use it. And if it's not, walk away from it, but know what it is. So the first Tinker Time session was revolutionizing the reading experience in higher education. And we went with that because college faculty like to learn and we read. We all pretty much have master's degrees or doctorate degrees. So we've read a lot in our lives. So it started, we used Flip, which is a platform that I love that gives you little video snippet conversations. And in Flip, faculty went in. The first assignment was called Bookworm Confessions, Spilling the Tea on Our Favorite Genres. The title was developed by ChatGPT, as were the assignment instructions. And faculty just had to go into Flip and talk about what their favorite genre of literature was and why. What do you like to read and why? So it was the gentle, let's get people in an area where they already know things and then ease them into something else. The next assignment in there, which we did, in person together, or people did asynchronously online, was to take a piece of text and toss it into an LLM and have it summarized with a so what component that would engage college students in the voice of a specific author or musical artist. So it was fun. It was tinkering. Yeah, there were people who made it country western songs. I did mine on Douglas Adams because Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, why not? So there's all sorts of, and then you have it make specific references to the author or artist you talked about. So it was something that was kind of lighthearted and a little entertaining. And folks who were like, I don't want to touch this, could still look at other people's and see what that was about. And then they had to score it on a rubric to see how well AI did of summarizing this piece of text. So this is where we found out that it's not accurate all the time. And again, it gives that agency of, if you're the subject matter expert, you're the subject matter expert, and you have to impart that knowledge onto your students. AI is not going to do it for you. So it continued on, and then we went and we had I love PackBack as a discussion platform we used a lot. So then there was a PackBack discussion and reflection about how that whole thing worked out. The next module was one that Anna created. It was relevance and reflection, revitalize assignments for authentic learning. And this dove more into that intrinsic motivation that Heather Brown talked about a little bit earlier, and motivating students to really want to engage in the assignments through relevance, through reflection, so that they wouldn't go into using AI to do work for them. Because if the assignment is relevant and if they're using their personal reflections, they're going to want to do it themselves because it's about them. They're going to learn from it and they're going to find it helpful. And then we had creating course content with ChatGPT. Laura Osgood, our director of online learning technologies, worked on that one. And it was actually from a session that she and I went to with Sean Newfer at OLC. And we used some of his ideas about how to create a whole course and outcomes and objectives and outlines. And so using generative AI to kind of create courses and create maps and get more specific in learning outcomes. And then from classroom to career developing, and I should say relevance and reflection was actually Anna and Jillian Patch, one of our other instructional designers. And then classroom to career, that was all my friend Anna again, and she was kind enough to bring us, the rest of us, in on it. And anyone who may have seen us at UCF 2 months ago, we presented this one. And the thing I see when we're looking at some of these polls that you're doing right now, and especially with the problem solvers, most people in higher education are there for students. We want to serve students. We want to give them the tools that they need to succeed in their lives when they leave college. So from classroom to career was looking at, when students graduate from college, what do they need to know in order to get through an interview and get a job? And so Anna used prompts to develop specific avatars that represented our students and their varying knowledge and use of AI while they were in college, and how that would play out in a job interview. And she also sourced some wonderful interview questions from some of our local and some other national corporations that were related to AI. So that all of a sudden, when faculty is sitting in the room and they're thinking, I don't want AI in my classes, but they see their student go to a job interview who's never used it and knows nothing about it and can't answer questions, it changes the temperature really fast of, how are we best serving students when it comes to AI? And it's some really interesting stuff.
Thanks, Heather. Yeah, so I put in the chat too. We're going to share all of these resources with you. We've got one link at the end that's got everything in there, including the slides from today, with the results that we just shared and so on. I want to kind of expand what Heather said outward. So now you've got a picture of what we did, and we really want to think about PD strategy on the larger level. So as we were thinking about maybe what are some of the mismatches, these are ideas that I think would help us develop and are helping us develop a more cohesive strategy overall. One is to identify audiences and roles for PD sessions. And sometimes it's everyone, but it doesn't always have to be everyone. If there are people who we think could really benefit who aren't as likely to come, could we design something that anyone is welcome to come to, but really is going to specifically appeal to them and the problem from their point of view? So we're humans, and all of us sometimes think, you know what Heather needs to know? You know what Heather needs to learn? She really needs to learn X. I can't think of anything good. Rather than saying, you know, Heather seems frustrated by this. How could I help? How could AI help? How could learning technologies help? So really looking at it from the audience's point of view, and you don't have to use the roles from our framework. There's all kinds of ways to think about what roles people are playing at your institutions. I think it's really nice to always have a hard deliverable, something that they know they can take away, even if it's not paper, something they can take away that day and really dive into that is useful right away. And then what I like to call 1-degree turns. If we really want to start becoming more cohesive as a faculty, if we want to promote our institutional values in certain ways, it's not about getting in there and browbeating people. You all know this because we've all been on both sides of PD, right? But what empowering 1-degree turn could you offer in a PD session that changes the destination of that ship? So if you think about a great big ship, 1 degree is going to land you eventually in a different place. So those are some principles for professional development that you might use and change around to suit your own needs. What I thought might be fun, and if anyone happens to have a Chat GPT or another AI open, you can do this live with us. I'm not going to do it live because that always burns me. It just always does. But I thought, how could we take those principles and make them into a prompt? So here, and again, this is available to you in the resources that we'll share. You're an expert. We're telling ChatGPT, you're an expert in professional development. Help me design some sessions for my faculty at this institution. And then if you wanted, and it would be relevant for what you're doing, describe more about your institution. Who do you serve? What are your values? Next, I want to reach faculty who fit the following role relative to their attitude about AI and education. And then you would insert the role. And again, from that framework that we talked about, or from just whatever is helpful to you. Hopefully you're typing really fast. Okay, now this is where I'd love some participation from you in the chat. I believe their pain point, that's a marketing term, the problem they want to solve. I believe their pain point is, what do you believe their pain point is? Give me some examples. Here's one. They may need to revise assignments so students aren't using ChatGPT to complete them. So what do you think? Think of some faculty at your institution. What is their pain point? Why would they be inspired to come to a professional development session? They don't know where to start. Great one. They don't want students to cheat. Absolutely. That might be the one we're hearing the most right now. What else? Yes, ethics and privacy. You know, Heather mentioned talking to employers. We got a very loud and clear message that employers wanted students, new employees, to be able to talk about the ethics of AI. How does it work in their discipline? Are they feeling overwhelmed or not competent? Concerned with humanity in general and where it's going? Absolutely. We've been talking with students. We're having an AI forum every Thursday with lots of student participation, and students are asking these questions. Great. Thank you for sharing all those. So the next part of the prompt would be, I would like the sessions to include this really concrete deliverable. And then ideally, the work they do in the session would help them. This is that 1 degree turn. So again, I'd love to hear your ideas here. So I said, for example, begin to realize the importance of adapting and make them more comfortable with generative AI overall. So that one was pretty generic. Are there more specific ones? What's the 1 degree turn you might want to facilitate in your professional development session? Okay, to start training students on how to use it. Absolutely, great one. Good policies, see how it saves them time. I saw something about confidence. You know, one of the messages we keep trying to get out to faculty is you already have the skills to navigate this. Higher education and AI, we're made for one another. So when faculty are feeling less confident, I really want to assure them that they are exactly the voices we need in this conversation. Yeah, Heather makes a great point about playing, right? Give people permission to play. Sometimes we're reluctant to, I just set up a new coffee maker. I didn't play with it. I got the instructions and I followed them very specifically. I'm comfortable with that. But that encouragement to play when it comes to AI is probably really important in a way that it's not with our typical ed tech tools. Creative thinking, Laura. Yes, absolutely. There are so many great ideas out there. And sometimes I'm like, I want to use this in my class. But more often I'm like, oh, that gives me an idea about what my students need. So I love the sharing. Yes, ideation, brainstorming. I think all of this is so important. Great. All right. And then last but not least, get some practicality, right? Like how long do you have? Usually an hour. How many ideas would you like it to give you? What are some parameters? So those kinds of things can help for sure as you are making your idea. And then if you've never used ChatGPT, you may be surprised, others of you won't. It's going to give you a bunch of ideas really fast, and some of them are going to be really good. One of the things I keep hearing faculty say is, oh, ChatGPT isn't very good. Yeah, it's really good, actually. And we need to stop fooling ourselves by telling that story because it's probably not helpful or true. So you can look at those choices and maybe, man, that nailed it, hook, line, and sinker. But more likely, you are going to say, oh, I'll take this piece from this one and this piece from that one. Someone says we need to stop using ChatGPT as a search engine. It's so true. I have a sister who works in industry and in knowledge management. So she's always trying to get that point across to people. And we decided to call it an idea engine, right? It's different. You don't go to Google to look for ideas. You go to look for, information. And then it's the flip side with this for sure. Good. All right. So you're going to choose and develop. And then one of the things that we thought might be helpful to do, and I learned something from a great person. If you're on LinkedIn, follow Connor Grennan is his name. He just posts great stuff every day. And this was way back when I first started using LLMs. And he said, talk to it. Say like, hi, thanks, that's great. Not because it helps the LLM, because it helps your natural language work better. But a paper recently came out that said being nice to it and asking it using emotional appeals does actually seem to increase the quality of its output. So we can all think about what that might mean later. So I said, that's great. Thanks. There might be people. So I said, hey, make mine about guardians. There might be people who aren't really guardians who come. Can you make suggestions to make sure this is inclusive of those folks as well? So I really designed it with this kind of a mindset and these kinds of challenges in mind. But I know Heather's going to come and she's more of an innovator. So how can I make sure that everybody feels included in what I'm going to offer? So as I said, that prompt is going to be available to all of you. I would love to know if it produces anything good for you or how you change it and so on, so that it maybe helps you do something interesting and helpful for your faculty. All right. Did anybody prompt along with us? Anybody really ambitious? Okay, Michelle, good. You have to go back. We know, read our output carefully, but maybe there's something good in there. All right, let me turn this back over to Heather, who is going to talk a little bit about, this is not the only professional development that we did. This fits in, this is one of the pieces of the puzzle. And then it's helped us figure out what's next. So Heather, why don't you go ahead and jump in here and talk about that, please?
All right. So the big picture and what's next is people. It's always people. As much as we talk about, generative AI and how wonderful it is and how much it can help us to be more creative and more effective and more efficient and all of that, we have to put the information in. Whether we're saying it with our voices now or typing with our fingers, we're putting in the information. So as I was just looking at my notes from the slide, I had to laugh because Anna gave me this slide to do, because Anna made this whole entire presentation, because that's what Anna does. And I looked at the big pick and what's next and my notes from it. And I realized I'm talking about all of the things that Anna has done, which she will not take credit for because she's going to say that we all did them. But she has been the big picture, innovative idea leader in our institution. So I just want to say, if you have these people who have bottomless energy and enthusiasm and they're ready to roll with it, the best thing about where we're at, and I see Roz has 100, she knows it, is we have Roz and Jason who have fully supported Anna in running with these ideas along with the rest of us who tag along, and therefore she has time to make them happen. So one of the first things that Anna did at our institution that really hit the AI bowl rolling for us is she brought in Dan Fitzpatrick. And so if you know the AI educator, he is a dynamic, enthusiastic, wonderful speaker with tons of tools. And he came all the way across the pond and spent a day with us at FSW, with our faculty, with our administration, with our staff, talking about AI in higher education. Anna's going to drop that in the chat right now. I can see her doing it, Gloria. So that was our launch also of IIET, which is our Institute of Innovative and Emerging Technology. So our CIO has kind of kicked off this institute that is going to have specific resources to making sure that our institution and our students are prepared to step into the future, and especially step into the future in workforce. So the big picture is a lot bigger than faculty development. It's institution wide, and it's trans-departmental. It is IT working very closely with academic affairs, with student affairs. We have everything going from admissions to marketing, and we're all pulling together to make sure our students have these resources. PD is one component of it, but it couldn't happen without everything else happening besides. So we had Dan Fitzpatrick come in. Anna then created 2 beautiful toolkits, which you'll have access to in the resource. One for faculty that bring faculty step by step through how to use generative AI and just understanding what it is. I think one of the challenges that many of us are seeing in higher ed is there's a large percentage of people who are saying, don't do anything with generative AI in higher ed. And most of those people haven't touched it. It's really hard to build policy around something that you're not familiar with. I wouldn't want to tell somebody how to drive a car if I've never driven one. Could I do it? Maybe, but without having the experience of driving a car, I wouldn't feel like an expert in sharing that information and teaching someone else how to do it. So in building the faculty toolkit, Anna has given faculty a place where they can go in and they can start to learn about artificial intelligence and its implications. And then they can have the knowledge they need to start to have these conversations and make some of the big decisions. Anna also created a beautiful student learning module where students can go through and get badges as they're introduced to AI, including an ethics badge. So we want to make sure that our students who are using generative AI are using it ethically. What I've found in my own work that I think is really interesting, and I heard this best stated on a podcast with Adam Grant and Sal Khan, is that when we're using things like Chat GPT effectively, especially in teaching and learning, it's going to increase literacy. And I'm seeing it in my own students now, and especially in the student assistants that I work with every day, as they're engaging in these conversations and using natural language, they're reading and they're writing and they're enjoying it. And I've been in education for over 20 years, and I started in middle school. And I gotta say, when you see students enjoying reading and writing, that is a huge, huge win. So, you know, the big picture looks like, how do we get students engaged in this in such a way that they can use it as a tool for learning, as a tool for advancing themselves, not a crutch they lean on to do their work for them, but something that they can learn with, that they become the agents of their own education. And it really is a beautiful future that we can look at in looking into what's next. We also have a Tech Champs program that's working with this, and that was started by Rosalind Jester, who's in the chat right now, where we have faculty that are championing emerging technology. And a lot of that emerging technology is using AI. So we have faculty talking to faculty about how do you bring this technology into your classrooms to engage your students, but also to lighten your own load a little bit, to work smarter instead of working harder. Our faculty are teaching a 5-5 load, and the vast majority of them are teaching overloads plus serving on committees. And then they all have, you know, families and responsibilities outside of work. So everybody's stretched really thin. So if you can use something like, you know, Kahoot to come in and Pear Deck and engage your students in learning in a way that lightens the load a little bit from lecturing to an audience of students who may not always be as engaged as they should. These are best practices that we want to share, and we like to let faculty share, faculty who are using them and know they work, share them with other faculty. We also have, if Chat GPT were a cookie, psychology is one of my disciplines, and it's something that Anna studies as well. And so Anna's really delved into, from the instructional design side, motivation, what motivates students to learn, and then what is causing them to not be motivated to learn, and how can we really interlay that with instructional design and all of the work that we're doing. And the list goes on and on. I'm glancing down at my notes because I was writing down, like, okay, what are all the things that we're doing? And it's a group effort. It's a collaborative effort. So it comes back to the humans. As we move into spring, Anna and I are collaborating again with Tinker Time, but this time we're moving into Tinker Time, the Wellness Series. So much like Tinker Time last time, there's going to be an artificial intelligence component to everything we do. But what we really want to focus on is faculty wellness, because the one thing that we're hearing overwhelmingly in higher ed is people are burned out. It's hard. Between the pandemic and changing technology and new challenges, there's so much to take in every day. It's hard to process, and a lot of faculty members are just tired. So how can we build practices into daily responsibilities that are going to help people to feel a little bit more nourished, a little bit more cared for, and be able to bring that to students? Because it's our job to serve students, but it's really hard to do that when we're not serving ourselves. And how can we use AI as an assistant or as an agent, if you were watching Sam yesterday in the keynote, to make that a little bit easier, to lighten that load and to share the heavy lifting. So that is the big picture and what's next. Anna, what have I missed?
Oh my gosh, I don't think anything. Well, actually, right now we are having and this came from Roz and you, and it's just really awesome. AI open forums on Thursday afternoons, and those were open to the entire college, and so far have been students and some faculty members, but we're all like just so excited. We see all those logins coming every week, and there's all these students. Of course, they don't turn their cameras on because they're students, but it has been so great to hear their perspectives, what's top of mind for them, what their questions are, how they're using it. It has been a really great experience. And so, I would love it if more faculty members are there to hear the student voice on this. And I think that is something that we need to, do more and more for sure.
Oh, and we also, one other thing we have, what's next, if we don't get to all of your questions today, because Anna and we've been talking to each other for a very long time, if you can't tell, and we like to talk to each other. We do it pretty much every day, thankfully. But we are answering your questions in video clips and posting them on LinkedIn. So if we don't get to all your questions today, you'll have an opportunity to connect with us later. But there's a way in the future to keep asking us questions, and we'll keep talking about them.
Yeah, so I think on this slide, you can actually put questions in, and we do have a little bit of time. Tom has been generous enough to extend to us some more time for Q&A for anybody who would like to stay. But otherwise, we would love to just have you throw some things in here, and we will answer them on video. We just love to talk, and we love to talk to each other. So we thought, it just seems like a good all-around idea for everyone. I am going to, but in case anyone does need to sign off, put the link of the resource that we keep talking about into the chat. All right, a couple questions in the Q&A. Great question. Andy asks, if you did Tinker Time all over again, what, if anything, might you change? Heather, I know you have an answer top of mind to that.
Change everything all the time. I have never done anything I wouldn't go back and change. It's just the nature of life and growth and all of that. If I went back and did it again, less is more. We packed in way too much information and didn't need as much as we put in. So I would go back and simplify, and that I'm really glad that you asked that question, because that's something that I need to remember with the next Tinker Time is one small bite can contain multitudes. And so it's really better to dive deeper into one thing than take a shallow dive into many things.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Another thing that we talked about too was now that we know who our faculty innovators are, so part of Tinker Time was like, let's figure out who the innovators are. So now that we know who they are, it might really be helpful to have them co-presenting things as well, because they'll just reach faculty in a way that we may not. One of the questions that I'm seeing here in the Q&A that is really, I think, a helpful one for most of us is, how did we market the AI forums to get students to go? And I'll actually repeat something that I said in another answering another question is food. Heather Brown says, yes, absolutely. No, they're on Zoom, so no food, although you're welcome to bring your own, of course, is that we have a great marketing team who's really, really been involved in our efforts to explore AI in a substantial way. And what we really, I think, have going as an institution is that we're really busy breaking down silos. And we're talking to people who aren't doing the same things that we're doing. But so marketing has made sure that they're getting those messages out to students. And I think some faculty members are encouraging their students to attend as well. So thank you for that question. Heather, there's one in here that says, how many faculty would you say participated in Tinker Time? And did you get any new faculty that don't usually attend your events? You want to talk a little bit about that?
So we have badged Tinker Time, and as part of our Tech Champs initiative, we had a summertime Tinker Time badging initiative. And then because all of the modules or sessions are available asynchronously, they become part of another fall badging initiative where faculty can attend a specific amount. They can pick and choose amount of events related to our technology champions and then get a badge as, a technology champion themselves. And so we have had folks that we haven't seen before. What I thought was really interesting with Tinker Time is we've had staff come. And I think that is super important. Often in colleges, we talk about faculty and we talk about students, but we have a lot of staff members who are interested in using AI in the course of their jobs. And so they're coming to Tinker Time just to kind of, see what it's about. But it's nice because they're student facing. So again, it's creating that culture of a growth mindset of all of us learning together as an institution and as a community. We've also had really good adjunct enrollment because it is available asynchronously. Folks can do it at their own time. And as we all know, many of our adjuncts are either teaching in K-12 full time or they're working in industry. And so having something where they didn't have to come in during the 9 to 5 time has made that good. So we still have people kind of trickling in, and the Tinker Time is a 4-session series. So we've had some folks who've done all 4 sessions. Most have come in and done 1 or 2 that they find interesting. And that's what we want. We want to put information out there that people are interested in, that they can go to and check out and be like, this is interesting. Let me explore that. And who knows, maybe then they'll get interested in something else. So I don't know what the total number is. I'd have to ask Laura, who does the badges, to see what the total number of enrollees versus folks who've completed it. But we've definitely had a fair amount of traffic for a new initiative, which we like. Oh, there's Laura. Never mind. She just put, Laura, I just saw you put something up there and then it disappeared.
Yes. So I'll just say as well that one of the things that can be really helpful with PD is it's not always about quantity. It might be about getting the right people in for the 1 degree turn that you want to make. And so really quickly, somebody asked, and I just wanted to answer that, yes, the resource does contain links to the Tinker Time modules. If you're a Canvas user, you can get the Canvas cartridge. Otherwise, we put them in a RISE format where you can copy and paste things. But Kevin asked a great question that I think is related to this, like high flex. So high flex is you can attend in person or on Zoom synchronously, or you can do it asynchronously in your own time. And what he's saying, I believe, is that some of their presenters haven't had the greatest experiences with that. And I will admit that Heather talked me into it. I was like, yeah, that's such a great idea. Let's not do it. But she made a good case for it. And what I think made it work is that these weren't huge sessions. They were a nice size for that to really work. And they were some of the people who are a little bit more tech savvy. So we didn't have a lot of things to troubleshoot. So yes, high flex is challenging, but I think it can be really, really rewarding. And like Heather said, then we can include people who may not always be able to get to campus. And those voices, I found the same, really did enrich our conversations in a lot of ways. What else are you seeing here?
Actually, so we have a question about the materials being licensed through Creative Commons. Anna, do you want to talk about that?
Yes. So yes, our materials are licensed through Creative Commons, share alike, non-commercial. I believe is the, but if you look on the resource, it will say there. So please use what is helpful. Somebody asked a question in the chat earlier. Thanks, Roz, for putting that official name up there about, what about copyright for these? So yesterday, OpenAI announced this big change where people will be able to build chatbots called GPTs, specific to what is what you want to say. So I think if you want to make a little bit of money, then I would go think about making some GPTs. For others of us, we may be doing some of that and some of, let's really share this and get this out here. I think this is a huge moment for higher education to really step into what we do best. And right, humanity has probably never had as powerful a lever as AI. And so if higher education can come into this moment and start to use our unique contributions to make sure we're using that lever in the for the benefit of humanity, I think it's really a worthwhile thing.
And I'm going to plug here. There's a wonderful book by Adam Grant called Givers and Takers, which I believe Anna's reading right now. And I think it has some really important research and statistics behind the power of sharing and giving. And this is for education. This is to serve our students. It's not something like, Anna and I don't mind getting paid. It's nice, but it's not something to profit off of as much as it is a way for all of us to grow and to learn together and to create the narrative that we want to see, where we're giving students the best possible opportunities to learn and to succeed and to join the workforce with the knowledge that they need to excel. And so we happily share anything we've done. If you jump into something in the RISE presentation or in the Canvas cartridge and you have a question about it, please reach out to us. We are happy to answer it. We're happy to talk to faculty at any institution. We feel like what we're doing is adding something to the conversation that we want to share. So don't hesitate to ask.
Nicely said, Heather. Yeah, and in fact, I'm going to go ahead and put something in the chat earlier that I had put in earlier one more time, because speaking of like extremely generous sharing, our friends at UCF created something that really can give you some ideas for how to, start tomorrow to put to incorporate some AI into courses. And it's such a great resource and so valuable, and so excited that they shared it. Since we went to the conference, here, I've got it close by. I do have my own hard copy version of it, but this is a PDF version. Let's see, look at us right here. Really helpful.
Isn't remotely surprising that we both have it within fingers reach, but yeah, thank you to the friends at UCF for this text.
Yeah. There's a question right here in the middle of this screen that says, how do you get faculty to look beyond those who are cheating? And so, Tom, if we could just have like another 5 hours to talk about that, I think that'd be good. We'll try to get to this one and put it in the resource kit that we sent out, because that's a huge, huge question.